This happened in Bowling Green, Kentucky, a town which, at the time, a man named Bruce Wilkerson was the mayor of. He owned a small house in the area that he was in the middle of renovating, but he would still stay there overnight in the weeks the house was being worked on. It was the middle of the night on April 22nd, 2020, when Bruce was woken up to loud noises coming from the house's basement. As he was coming to, he also recalled smelling cigarette smoke. Now, the basement was more of a cellar, and then you had to go outside to actually get to it. Bruce went outside and walked up to its entrance. Right away, he noticed blood smeared across the basement door. Not a lot, but enough to raise concern. He opened the door and walked inside. There, he found a backpack filled with women's clothing and other various items. Bruce immediately called the Bowling Green Police Department, a department which he had previously worked for as a police officer. He asked them if there were any reports of a missing woman, but he was told that there were none, so he closed the basement door and went back upstairs. Only moments after he got back inside, the house suddenly lost power. This prompted him to again go back out to the basement. This time he noticed the basement door was open. He once again searched inside, and now found a woman who looked to be in her 20s. She was disheveled and covered in dirt. The woman told Bruce one thing, that she was hiding from someone. Bruce offered to call the police, but to that she immediately left the basement and ran away. Nothing had been stolen, so he wasn't interested in her arrest, but he still ended up calling the police. Police searched the surrounding area, however they never found the woman. It's still unknown how long she had been staying there. Her identity is also still unknown, and with no relevant missing person cases, it's likely this won't change anytime soon. She hasn't been seen ever since. It's August 2nd, 2010, just past 8 p.m. A security guard in Ontario, Canada was doing his nightly rounds on rural government-owned airport lands. Among the trees, the area was dotted with a few abandoned houses that were commonly targeted by vandals and arsonists. On this night, the security guard noticed a suspicious vehicle parked close to one of the houses. He decided to sit there and wait for the owner to return. 2 hours would pass until he finally gave up and continued doing his rounds. By the time he did a full circle and returned to the same spot, the car was gone. It wasn't much, but the security guard still made a report about it. Fast forward over a year later to November of 2011, and a set of contractors were sent out to the same house to examine it for later demolition. However, as they were completing their inspection, they would discover something in the basement. They walked inside and saw chains bolted to the ceiling extending to the ground. The whole room was recently painted completely white. There was a construction bench, along with tools marked with red paint. There were multiple jugs of water. All the windows had been double paned. The walls and ceiling were insulated with double-layered fiberglass. Unsettled by the sight, the contractors called the police. Police considered various scenarios. For example, they considered if it could have been a movie set. But, of course, they also considered the much darker scenarios, like if someone was planning to abduct another person and lock them inside. This prompted them to look through filed reports, and this would lead them to the report made by the security guard over a year prior. Fortunately, the security guard had written down the car's license plate in the report, which gave police a starting point. Eventually, this would lead them to a man named Robert Edwin White. After that, not much research was required to put the rest of the case together. Robert's wife had recently ended their marriage, and she would turn to her close friend, Gwen Armstrong, for support. This made Robert grow a deep resentment towards Gwen, as he felt she was responsible. Robert's now ex-wife would end up telling police how Robert ran a renovation business, and that he always marked his tools with red paint, which was consistent with what they found in the basement. This was enough to get him arrested, and while in custody, he would admit to renovating the abandoned house's basement, although he didn't say why he did it, at least not until he was thoroughly questioned in court. There, he admitted that he wanted to abduct Gwen Armstrong, his ex-wife's friend, who, again, he felt was responsible for his divorce. Robert was charged with breaking and entering with the intent to commit an indictable offense. Before we continue, I wanted to talk about this video's sponsor, Raid Shadow Legends. Raid Shadow Legends boasts 600 unique champions. The owner had passed away, and the house was very old, which made it a pretty cheap buy, something Jerry described as perfect for a first-time homeowner. As the post continues, Jerry explains how when he purchased the home, the basement was completely full of junk, like to the point where you couldn't even really go down there. When he purchased the house, he started cleaning it out himself, and that's when he noticed a sheet of plywood oddly fit against the wall, something he never noticed before. He tried moving it, but it was pinned to the wall by the stairs. He pried at the top of it and could make out another room. He pulled harder at the wood, and it finally gave way. Immediately, he saw a safe. He stepped inside the room and tried to open it, but it was locked. He searched the rest of the small room and found multiple gun cases. They were all stacked on top of one another. Accompanying this were crates upon crates of ammunition, all different kinds too. As he kept looking, he just kept finding more. Also found inside was a hand grenade, although it wasn't active, it didn't even have a pin to pull. As for the safe, it's still unknown what's inside. Jerry never gave an update on if he was even able to get it open or not.
Hitman 47.
Velma Kellen was a retired 73-year-old living in Yelm, Washington. It was nearing the end of 2012, around the time of year where it was really starting to get cold outside. Velma would routinely use her house's furnace to keep the place warm, but she started noticing how little of an effect it had on the temperature inside. The house would remain cold. She started putting the furnace to its max setting, but still the house stayed cold.
Because she's 85.
Finally, it got too cold to bear. She called out a repairman to fix the issue. He went down to her basement where the furnace was located, and there he found something strange. The furnace was working fine, but the air duct had been torn so as to redirect the heat to the basement instead of the house upstairs. The repairman also noticed empty beer bottles and other trash scattered around the basement floor. He fixed the ducts and went up to tell Velma. When she heard about it, she recalled other oddities, like how there would sometimes be the smell of cigarettes around her house at random times, or how she had always noticed her backyard gate was left open after she knew she had closed it the night before. Both of them realized that someone had clearly been living in Velma's basement. Police were called and they further investigated. They believed that someone was getting in the basement through a crawl space which was covered by a slab of stone. Velma replaced this duct the very next day. No arrests have been made, and nothing has happened since. How long this person was living in Velma's basement is unknown. In July of 2017, Joshua Seguin, a man from New York, was pulled over by police while traveling through Georgia. He didn't have a driver's license, and so he was arrested on the spot. Police searched his truck, and strangely, they found 5 undersized sharks in a large circular tank in the bed of the truck. Owning or even transporting these animals was illegal in the state without a proper license, something which Joshua didn't have. Joshua admitted that he was transporting the sharks to New York, where he intended to sell them. This prompted police to request a search warrant of Joshua's house. They were granted it days later. They immediately searched the house, and when they entered the basement, they found a 15-foot above-ground pool. Inside were more illegally kept sharks, some of them endangered. There were 10 of them in total, 7 live sandbar sharks, 2 dead leopard sharks, and a dead hammerhead shark. The animals were carefully relocated to a nearby aquarium. Investigators believe that Joshua was likely breeding the sharks to sell to private collectors. He was later charged in court with illegal possession of the sharks with the intent to sell.
Oh, that's so scary! Oh!
Hello!
Oh.
Hi, I'm good.